it hadn't started yet. Now it has.
Now it started. All
Yep.
right.
Here we are with our last group meeting.
Yay
Hi.
for finish lines.
I don't have a computer today, so I'm sharing with Jason.
Yeah.
So maybe we should start the methodology we chose and how we implemented it.
We chose to work with Scrum, an agile method. We found it fit our needs probably better than the other methods that we were going for. So in Scrum, we implemented backlogs, sprint logs, sprints, and stand-up meetings with sprint planning meetings every week.
Yeah, I mean, we had to modify things because we couldn't do daily stand-ups like you might see in a traditional sprint. But the backlog consisted of all the coding topics and UML topics required for the course that we were to work on, and that mapped to our schedule. You've seen our team schedule and how that fits in. And so each week when we had our meeting that was kind of our sprint planning as well as kind of a stand-up, we assign coding topics to each team member to prepare for presentations the following week, and that would be our sprint. And then when we would meet up the next week, as you know, we were able to meet together on campus, so each Wednesday we had our meeting, and that's where we would go over our schedule, give our teaching videos, our teaching presentations, and then plan for our next sprint.
Except for the second week, it was a little bit different because the way we had things set up is we do our sprint, and then after we did our sprint, the coding topics, we had basically went over what we had learned the previous week, and then we do a sprint to do all of the coding topics and all of the UML diagrams.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think after having tried this out during the semester? What would you say strengths and weaknesses of this methodology, or if you had to do it over again, would you choose a different methodology?
Scrum's definitely easier when you have the day-to-day because it allows you to get back to the team, always say, this is what's in my way, what do you guys recommend? We kind of missed that, but because of our schedule, it didn't really work very well. Some of the pros, though, are things like the backlog and the sprint log, sprint planning. Those are actually a lot more beneficial to us, I think, over the long term for this class.
You know, one thing I regretted that I wrote in my professional development paper is I almost wish we would have used a tool like Jira or something. Not that it's necessary in a simple project, but that it would have fleshed out our schedule a little more and kind of given us more of a deep dive into that methodology. I almost wish we'd had used something like Jira to track our backlog items and all that stuff.
I'm not familiar with Jira.
It's just it's a software tool used for Scrum where you can set up a project, and inside of that project you have your Scrum leader and your team members, and you put in your backlog items, all the things you're trying to attack to accomplish, and then you can add those to a sprint and give them to team members to accomplish. And there's a whole bunch you can do with it. I used it when I was down at the church, and we didn't use half the power that was in there, but you can use it to track bug fixes for projects and all sorts of other stuff where you can classify the backlog items and put those in and kind of track when they're completed. And so I don't know, part of me wishes, it's hard to know, this class suffers from not having a lot of structure and things explained, and I think had I known what I was going to want to put into professional development at the end, I would have said, yeah, maybe it would be useful to be able to track everything in something like Jira or another tool.
Speaking of another pro and con of this, one of the cons we suffered is because of how non-existent a syllabus really is. There was a lot of projects we got, i.e. this video, the video presentation at the start of the semester, that it kind of behaved as a scope creep. It just kind of inserted itself into the project. We had no control over it. But the pro of that was we could adjust our sprint log or sprint planning every week. Say, okay, well, we need to do this now this week. These other items are going to have to take a little bit of a backseat so we can get this done on time. So that was, I guess, another pro and con. You're sitting there right there as an incomplete backlog because of stuff like, well, we didn't have everything or a good way to flush it out.
Well, I mean, we used Scrum in our 380 class, and I just like it because it's so flexible. so you're able to change things as they come along.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I really like. So we did kind of a modified Scrum when I was using 203 inch items. I really like that methodology, especially in a project like this, because it leaves you really fluid, right? My background was in construction management, so I'm used to waterfall stuff. I'm used to creating milestones and having all of these dependencies that have to fall in line and managing float on a project. And so I can see how that would be a disaster in software development, or how it would increase costs and be kind of a pain. Where this seemed like a really good fit for. It's almost shoot from the hip-ish, but I don't know. I felt like we were more successful as a group than most groups I've been a part of in college. And I don't know if that's necessarily due to the methodology, but it didn't hurt having a flexible methodology to use.
Yeah. The waterfall method, it kind of seems like it would have been inappropriate just because of the way this class is set up. I don't really know if it really works into with what we're trying to do. So.
Now, waterfall, just in general, has become such an aged process that it works for things still like construction, which hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, you set the plans for a house, you build it, or even doing like irrigation or farming, you kind of set up your plans and you just kind of do it. But programming needs to be so dynamic with customers changing requirements, codes always being updated. You kind of have to have that flexibility throughout in order to be successful.
Well, and in my experience with waterfall, the construction industry is no different in that you get a million change orders on a project. The customer will come in and say, I want this wall moved here, I want this painted different. You'll get change ordered to death, and that's how there are a lot of contractors that underbid a project and then just make up all their money on billions of change orders. But I don't know. I'm glad we picked this methodology, and I think that it seems like, especially if you have a team that's gone through the storming, norming, and conforming process, and I don't think we necessarily got to do all of that as a team, but you get a really gelled team that kind of understands one another, and I think a sprint can be really effective because you just set up your high priority targets and give a hard deadline and then just knock them down,
I'd say I don't think we didn't. I would say we definitely gelled together as a team. We didn't really have the storming, norming, and conforming thing because really there wasn't a huge conflict of who was trying to be in the lead at first. We all had a common goal. We were all cool with whoever wanted to take the lead, just kind of letting them do that.
Which is safe to say, we defaulted to just letting you take the lead, which is good.
Oh, I wasn't saying just me. I was just saying in general.
No, but you did. You took the lead and you did a good job. And I mentioned that in my paper too. Like, you kind of came out as the natural leader of the group, and you're right. We didn't have any storming because there was no real headbutting. We were all comfortable with that, and I think it worked out well.
I also think that we did such a good job because we're able to meet as a group on campus in person. Yeah. So I think that's really strong too.
That gives us an advantage.
Oh, yeah.
So should we talk about where we landed with the application?
Yeah, so at the start of the semester, we came up with this app to build tic-tac-toe. And we could go back and we show you all the documentation we did, but we kind of already showed that in our first video where we presented the tic-tac-toe app, where we showed what it would look like, some of the use case document diagrams and stuff like that. And what we decided to do is, we're going to get more comfortable with the coding topics and then kind of plan it into our sprint later on. But what we found was the coding topics that we were required to cover really didn't match the tic-tac-toe app that we intended to build.
Yeah, honestly, I don't like the fact that we planned the program at the beginning because I didn't know any of these code topics. I didn't know what they're going to cover. And so it's hard to plan around the coding topics when we don't know what the codes do. And so it's better to learn the codes and then come up with a project that you want to do.
Well, honestly, that's what I did with my personal app. So in the beginning, again, we didn't know anything, and so I kind of picked a college information app, and I was thinking about, creating an application where you could get info on student enrollment and sports mascots for a bunch of different colleges, and just kind of have, information for each of them. And it would have worked out okay. But as I got to learn the coding topics a little more, I switched over to a recipe app and started coding that up because it just made more sense. I could, it made more sense with Hibernate and all the technologies that you could implement with it. It just worked better. And so, yeah, I guess we didn't dive as far into coding a team app as maybe some of the other teams did. But our team focus was really helping one another understand the coding topics and to implement those in our own apps, which I don't know. I feel like we were really successful in doing.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd have to agree. The issue I have is kind of similar to Eric. We had to plan this app to meet requirements. We didn't even know what they meant. It would be one thing if the course had been designed to where you do this topic and then you code it in your application. It's a preset application. But when you have to come up with your own, you can't properly do that without having what you're supposed to be using. What tools are in your tool belt, I guess is the best way to say it. I mean, that's what kind of where the Scrum methodology came in, because we assessed about, I think it was like 7 or 8, and we just decided to throw it out. Because that's when we knew, like, none of this coding topics is really going to work for our app. And between our personal apps and concerns about grading and grades, we didn't see a way to possibly get it in there. So it's like Brandon said, we started focusing on helping each other with personal apps and getting the coding topics done. So that people at least, so we knew it was in our tool belt, we could build better from there.
Yeah, I think you're right. If we would have been, if everybody in the class was going to work on the same app, I know that this class is all about trying to, foster creativity, but it needs some structure. And I think saying everybody's going to do a recipe app or everybody's going to do whatever the instructor decides would make a lot more sense, because then when you get to Hibernate week, it's, hey, so we need to figure out how to get this recipe information using the Hibernate framework to save into the database. There would be, I don't know, it would make more sense anyway. But I feel like even though we didn't complete an app, we worked on an app together, and then we spent, especially towards the end, just helping one another get the coding topics.
Eric, Jason, do you guys have anything else on to add?
Yeah, you guys pretty much said the whole thing. I don't really find a point in focusing on an app straight out of the get-go, because I didn't know what any of the topics were. I have very little coding experience, so I was lost as everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have made sense to dive into an app like week 8, week 9, or like you said, have an app that's instructor wanted the whole class to focus on, and then we could go from there.
Eric, do you have anything?
No, that's pretty much my opinion about the whole thing.
So I was just thinking, the baking app, Brandon puts this into my mind. If you said we're going to do the baking app as an entire class, it's okay, how are you going to implement collections? Well, I could think of just right now 5 different ways to use a collection in a baking app.
Yeah.
Ingredients.
Use it for ingredients. You could use it for, hot, cold, desserts, lunch, dinner. There's so many ways you could have used it that you would have still let those teams become more creative with it, and it would have helped guided the class a little bit more.
Yeah, that's one thing. I have learned a lot in this class, more than I thought I would in the beginning. I felt lost for half the semester, but I do think it could benefit a lot from a little more structure, and especially if the teams were kind of working together in the same direction. It just gives you the ability to riff off of each other more. And if there were hard deadlines to submit certain parts of your application, to say by week 3 you guys need to have figured out collections and you need to have submitted a working collection thing for your baking app or whatever, and by this week you need to have Hibernate working with that. I don't know. I think that we would have come closer to completing a full application that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe that means we're not creative enough, but I really felt like the class needed some more structure.
I think we've covered our methodology, why we chose to use it. We talked about the application that we started working on and what kind of happened, why it tapered off in the end. I don't think there's anything else we need to cover in this presentation. Do you guys?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
No, just want to say thanks, Brother Tuckett. I know you're teaching the class that's given you, and so you only have so much wiggle room to work within those parameters. And so, hopefully, don't take our criticisms as a criticism of you necessarily. I appreciate personally the work that you've done.
Yeah, thank you a lot.
Yeah.
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.